Alright, hello. Chainsaw Man chapter 214 came out today, and we are going to talk about it. It went by pretty fast. It took me maybe 20 seconds to read the whole thing, another very quick chapter. But, anyways, the chapter starts with Yoshida from last chapter getting exploded. He surprisingly still has all his limbs and body parts, but he is lying in the pool of his own blood. And as Denji climbs out of the wreckage, he sees Yoshida, and then he sees Barum coming out of nowhere with the actual flamethrower on his back. He uses it to incinerate Yoshida's remains. And this is interesting that he is using an actual flamethrower instead of his, built in flamethrower, which we'll get to in a little bit. But first, he acknowledges Yoshida and he says that they both drew the short straw. So, before I talk about that, I just wanted to mention that I think it's interesting that this is the first time Barum and Yoshida has met each other. Well, I guess not really, because Yoshida's kind of probably dead, but you get what I mean. Because back in the Colts arc, the Chainsaw Zombie arc, Yoshida and Barum's position in the story kind of paralleled each other. Because while Denji was dealing with Barum, Asa was getting chased by Yoshida. So in a way, their roles in both Denji and Asa's story kind of mirrored each other. They're like the mini bosses of each of their storylines at that point in time. But but yeah, so this is the first time that the two of them have met or interacted as far as we know, and Barum kind of implies that they are both there to be used as a tool to be sacrificed for a greater purpose. But anyways, Denji turns into Pochita, who then eats Barum. He uses his tongue intestine to drag Barum into his mouth and then devours him. Barum complains a bit that it hurts to be eaten alive, but Yoshida, not Yoshida, Pochita, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up their names. So many similar syllables. But anyways, Barum is consumed by Pochita and possibly erased from memory. And right after that, the sky turned into doorways to hell, and the Death Devil and Fami acknowledges that something else is coming, and that something is another powerful devil that Pochita is about to fight. And the chapter ends. So yeah, pretty fast read. But before I talk about what this devil may be, I first want to go over what triggered Denji's transformation into Pochita this time. Because from last chapter, Yoshida said that his role is to be a switch. So, judging from this chapter, I guess he meant that he is switching Denji into Pochita. But how did that happen? Because I think some people's first understanding of it is that Denji was so sad about Yoshida's death that he turned into Pochita, which kind of tracks with his last two transformations, but doesn't really make that much sense because, as far as we know, he doesn't care about Yoshida that much. They're not really friends. They haven't interacted that much with each other for the most part. Even last chapter, Denji was just thanking him for giving him food to eat. So I don't necessarily think that's why. I do like the vision though, if like that was expanded more upon throughout part two, where we actually see them be friends with one another. We see Denji care about him, and then Yoshida kill himself to trigger Denji's transformation. I think that would have been a cool storyline, but that's not what we got. Um, and also, Barum, it seemed like Barum's sacrifice also has a part in whatever he wants Pochita to do next. He didn't fight back at all. He used a normal flamethrower to not defend himself when Pochita eats him. So he offered himself to Pochita basically. I don't know what this is going to do for Pochita. I guess maybe the perhaps the future has flamethrowers in it, and it's better for Pochita to not fight something with a flamethrower. But regardless, the third possibility is that Pochita sensed the arrival of this really powerful devil that the Death Devil said was coming at the end of the chapter, and he just took over from Denji, so that he can fight it. Um, I think it's more likely to be C, but it would make Yoshida's action from last chapter kind of meaningless. So Yoshida did do something. His explosion somehow caused Denji to turn, but not probably not out of like Denji's sadness. Or maybe Yoshida's switch was meant to be a calling for whatever this next devil was coming. So he summons this devil with this explosion. Or maybe even his incineration was a summoning ritual for this upcoming devil, and he and Barum were working together to get Pochita to come out to fight this specific devil. But speaking of this devil, what could it be? It's probably not Yoru because the Death Devil would have just said so. She wouldn't be vague about it. This devil can seemingly transport like part of hell into Earth, and not very many devils we've seen do that. We've seen the Hell Devil do that. We've seen the well, not to like the extent of summoning doors directly. The only one that we saw was the Falling Devil, to my knowledge. So perhaps doing that is like that's like something only primordials can do, opening a portal from hell to earth with the use of the doors. But you know, given how the Death Devil is talking him up, I think it's definitely a primordial of some sort. Which one? I don't know, because I do feel we're running out of some primordial fears. It could be a rerun of the Darkness Devil, possibly, but I don't know. Maybe like the Loneliness Devil, perhaps. I'm digging my brain to think of like what else could be a primordial fear. But anyways, that's about the end of the chapter. A pretty quick one. Let's go to the. Okay, chapter 1. In and out, it did. Fujimoto was kidding about hating to draw. Barum can't hold a flamethrower with both hands. Front handle was huge. Let me take a look at the flamethrower, actually. I'm actually not familiar with what flamethrowers usually look like. Yeah, you're not wrong. His hand is positioned a bit weirdly. Like his elbow is here, and then his wrist is like, uh, it's here, and his left or not. I'm sorry, that's his right hand. Right hand looks kind of tiny, but that might be because he has like big biceps. I don't know why Fujimoto drew Barum so jacked. He has not done anything strength related. But every time we see Barum, his like arms are popping out of his shirt. But anyways, Let's see. In chapter 136, the Squid Devil Death pose matches Yoshida. I have doubts on him dying since he could also have STD. I do question if Yoshida's actually dead. He did give a pretty dramatic goodbye to Denji last chapter, claiming that they will never see each other again. But it's also a pretty anticlimactic way for him to go out, especially considering that he's like one of the few people from part one to have shown up in part two. Let's see. Both Barham and Yoshida knew they were going to die. Looks like the public safety and death planned this whole act. I don't necessarily know if the Death Devil doing this. But at this point, my allegiance chart is kind of all over the place. So she could very well have. Let's see. General consensus is that the door for the Darkness Devil, where the manga focuses on, looks different than the one the Darkness Devil came from chapter 64. Hope it's a new devil. Yeah, I did look at the doors a bit. There was a couple doors that looked similar, like the circular one here. I think that was present in the Darkness Devil chapters, but I think that could just be Fujimoto. You know, that's the door he likes, because there's only so many doors design that you can draw. But regardless, I do hope that it's not the Darkness Devil. I think there's a lot more, what do you call it, like a sense of skill if like you have some devils that are just never even close to defeated. And also, new devils are always fun to have. But yes, I don't think it's the Darkness Devil though, because I just don't get that feel, because when the Darkness Devil showed up last time, like the whole area turned dark into the night. It could be. It's not impossible, but I do hope it's something new, something different. Let's see, feels like Denji might be in control of this Black Chainsaw Man transformation. I don't know about that, but at the same time, from a narrative perspective, I do feel that it would be better for Denji to start. I feel Pochita's popping out a bit too much for my liking. I want Denji to do stuff and not Pochita to be here. I do want Denji to have more agency in the story and the fights. But even the Death Devil is left with her mouth open when looking at the doors. Yes, that was a bit that stood out to me, because she is supposed to be the, even without her like prophecy, she's supposed to be the strongest, the most fearsome devil. So we haven't really seen much of that yet. Let's see, where am I? I think it's a combination of things. Denji hates Barham due to Nayuta, and Yoshida reminded him of Aki, so maybe it reminded him of losing Aki. Also, Pochita might take over due to him sensing the doors. Yeah, that's a good point. Last chapter, Denji did have a little flashback of comparisons of like Aki and Yoshida, but at the same time, that's not really something that that's not something that Yoshida could have taken account into, right? Because he went to grab pizza to Denji, and it's not like he knew at that moment he would have reminded Denji of his past. He couldn't have predicted that, that's how much Denji cherished him in that moment, possibly. So I still don't think that Denji's feelings towards Yoshida was what caused the transformation. And I feel if like that's the case, Fujimoto would have added a few flashback panels to make sure that we realize that's what Denji was feeling. Let's see. Since war is after Denji, maybe it's related to war like the choking devil or the chemical war devil. I don't think it's gonna be that like small scale, because even like devils you think should be really powerful are kind of not all that. So like you said, for it to make the death devil like react, it has to be something a lot more than that. I think it's gonna be like at least a non like an abstract concept, not like a physical thing you can touch type of primordial. Actually, all primordials so far have been like that. But anyways, let's see. The new Kamen Rider show that came out 2 weeks ago had his first villain design after a gun in episode 1. On episode 2, he fights the Bomb Devil. Writers must like Chainsaw Man. They could. I haven't watched I haven't watched the Kamen Rider actually ever. Like sometimes I would go to a friend's house maybe and then see an episode here and there. Cause I had this I had a friend whose dad he liked Kamen Rider, so we would walk by him and he would watch like clips on YouTube. But I myself never watched it. I do remember seeing one clip of Kamen Rider where it's there's like one guy, I don't remember which Kamen Rider it was, but then he was beating up this this villain for really bad. He like knocked him out of the window and then he ran him over with his motorcycle and then just kind of like punching him on the ground. And that's my first and only impression of Kamen Rider, really. But let's see. Da-da-da. Isn't it because Denji considered Yoshida his friend? I wouldn't really say that, because from like last chapter was the closest that Denji actually came to acknowledging like any positive feelings towards Yoshida. Right? Like the last time they met prior to last chapter was I think right after the aging devil, where Denji tried to shoot him in the head. And then when Yoshida asked him to stay and help him out, he's like, nah, and just left. Actually, no, that wasn't what happened, because it was the Death Devil that left him, because she said he was boring. Denji left because Yoru took him and ran away. But regardless, the last time Denji and Yoshida interacted, Denji tried to shoot him in the forehead. So I wouldn't say they are friends at all. Or Denji even harboring any positive feelings for this guy. But yeah, friend seems like a strong word if it's more like acquaintance. I wouldn't even say acquaintance, because the last time they spoke to each other, Denji accused him of killing Nayuta. So I don't think Denji likes him at all, really. I think like I said last chapter, Denji was kind of feeling Yoshida, because at the time, like everyone else around him was just asking him to do stuff, which Denji doesn't like. And Yoshida appeared to have just came to him with the like an honest heart, honest intent, where he didn't ask anything of Denji. He gave him food and then he sat there. Turns out he was planning on blowing him up, but that's something else. The show actually called the villains in Kamen Rider Zets, the Gun Nightmare, and the Bomb Nightmare. Too much of Chainsaw coincidence. They start with big villains in Chainsaw Man. I do feel Chainsaw Man's designs, the devil designs, are very much like the what do you call the genre of like Power Ranger Kamen Riders? I know there's like a word for it. it escapes my head at the moment. But like the devil designs do, I think, take a lot of inspiration from these type of shows. Like the skin armor, at least. Like what comes to mind is the cockroach devil, right? The I don't know how to describe it. It's like almost a bionicle, mechanical kind of armor feel, but it's skin. But yeah, I never got into these kinds of shows just because the I feel the it's hard to keep track of which series to watch to begin with. But yeah, let me see. Oh, you know what? I forgot to screenshot comments from last week because we did have a handful. That is my mistake. Give me 1 second to do that. Let's see. Renian says, to be honest, Yoshida was kind of the only link between Chainsaw Man Parts 1 and 2, and everyone else is dead. So his end seems to be a step in pushing Denji further towards despair. Yeah, I can see that. Actually, I think that's a really good observation, and not exactly for like what Denji should have felt, but for how Fujimoto might be using a meta way to make the readers feel alienation by just killing any link we had to part one. Although, I guess the only other character from part one that's appeared in part two is Quan Chi, and was there someone else? I think that was it. This Barum is eaten too, and he barely showed up in part one. Ooh, to be honest, I'm still not totally convinced that Yoshida is dead. I feel he probably has more of a whatever Fami or not Fami Umiko's got going on, but maybe not STDs. Let's see. Mumby says, "I love yaoi." Yes, I don't know if last chapter was necessarily yaoi, but I do agree with the sentiment. Actually, the very first yaoi ship that I legit supported was Aki and Angel. Because for a quick second there, I thought that was where Fujimoto might have been considering going, but that didn't really work out. If I was Fujimoto, I would have made Aki. I would have ended Aki by having him do a gay kiss with Angel, and then have Angel drain the remaining of his life force away. I feel that would be a beautifully cinematic end, but turns out he just turned into a gun, which is not quite yaoi, unfortunately. Let's see. There's one more. It's possible that the intention that we never saw much of Yoshida and Denji. I'm sorry, I misread that. It's possible that it's intentional that we never saw much of Yoshida and Denji, that there is a disconnect with their relationship, because for most of what we've seen, they've never acted close. They never acted like close friends at all. We see him as I can't read. We see him as a guy who just monitors Denji and persuades him to not do anything drastic like turning into Chainsaw Man. Uh, yes. I mean, I don't think that like they were meant to be close ever, but I don't really know how to explain their interaction last chapter, other than that Yoshida was just maybe he felt they were closer than they really are, or maybe he was just saying all that to keep Denji's guard down because he was planning on blowing himself up. And speaking of blowing himself up, we never saw the source of explosion from last chapter because he apparently he can just do that. He can just make an explosion. But the explosion probably didn't come from him though, because if it did, his arms and legs would have been in different places, right? Instead, he just took like one, two stabbings from the debris, which isn't too bad, all things considered. So I guess maybe he planted the bomb at the school beforehand and then led Denji to the bomb. So the bomb was somewhere else and it didn't like come from his body. I guess that would make sense because the panel at the last chapter was like you see light from the right side of his face, so the bomb was probably planted away from his body. Because I was thinking like he at first my understanding was either that he put a bomb inside of him where he has a contract with the devil that makes him go explode. But I think it makes more sense now for him to have placed the bomb outside of his body, like somewhere in the classroom, and then set it off. Although he had to have like had some control over when to switch the bomb, and I don't see him doing that here. Maybe he pressed the button under the panel. I don't know, but either way, he made an explosion somehow. Let's see. So we're hybrid. Let's see. All right. I'm surprised they barely show his powers and he died so easily. The demon design looked like it was gonna come back. Yeah, because his octopus demon, or his octopus devil was surprisingly detailed. It was like a beautiful woman with octopus tentacle hairs. But yeah, but like I said, I'm not fully convinced that Yoshida is actually gone. But I guess maybe we'll see into the future. But yeah, I think that's about all I can talk about for the week, which is, I'm actually surprised with myself. We almost went 30 minutes for such a short chapter, really. But yeah, I guess that's all I've got for the week. I will see you guys next week.